Hey everyone, I hope y'all are having a great day. It has been a while since I last uploaded. I did not do anything booktube related all throughout this first semester. If you didn't know, I just completed my first semester of medical school and it was hard. It has been a lot of fun. I've met really incredible classmates that have really pulled me through, but it is just so academically rigorous and my brain is so small and it has been a tough semester. That being said, I read 2 books. I'm gonna count this as an impressive feat. I don't care that it's actually not one, but I'm gonna take it as a victory. So the first book I read is Normal People by Sally Rooney, and I read it because I watched the show adaptation of it and I thought it was so gorgeous and extremely well written, and I really wanted to see what the source material was like, and I thought the original novel was also fantastic. And initially I wanted to do a discussion of both the novel and the TV show adaptation, but at this point my memory is actually non-existent. There's literally nothing in here. I would not be able to make that video even if I wanted to because I don't remember anything about the show or the book except for the fact that I really enjoyed it and I thought the emotional weight of it was so impressive. This video is about the second book that I read during this first semester. I foolishly picked up The Poppy War by Rebecca F. Kuang the weekend before I had my 3rd anatomy exam. Mistakes were made. It ended up being fine, but wow, this book sucked me in. I know everyone and their mothers has been in love with this book since it first came out. The Poppy War is the first book in a trilogy. If you are one of the very few people on the book internet who doesn't know what The Poppy War is about, it's essentially the first book in what's an Asian fantasy trilogy. It's loosely inspired by the Opium and the Second Sino-Japanese Wars. And it kind of serves as this really intellectual allegory for East Asian politics. We are essentially in this fantasy nation that's inspired by China. There are other lands that are loosely based off of Japan or Hong Kong. Tiffany from Read by Tiffany has this beautiful blog post on her website, which I'll link below, that's essentially a crash course on how this book relates to actual East Asian history. And I gave that a read halfway through my read of The Poppy War. I think I might encourage you to save it until you're finished with the book just because there are light spoilers sprinkled throughout, but you could also read it before you start the book and just skim through the spoiler parts. This book is definitely one of those books that feels so much more enriching of an experience the more that you understand the context about what's being written about. It's a really compelling story. The author, Rebecca F. Kuang, genius. She's so smart. I remember reading her Wikipedia and I was like, are you kidding me? She's barely older than I am. She's so intelligent, so successful. I think she's doing her PhD at Yale right now after graduating undergrad from Georgetown. I think she also spent time at Oxford. I don't know. She's very impressive. You can look her up if you're interested. But yes, I started The Poppy War the weekend before a final and I tried not to read it that week because I was studying, but I did read some of it. It was just so tempting. I would go to bed and I'd be like, okay, I just spent so many hours studying, I should just sleep. My body needs sleep. But then I would look over at my Nook and be like, but what's Rin up to? So the novel follows Rin, who is this young, I don't even remember how old she is. I don't remember that many details. Maybe I shouldn't be making a video about this. But then I wouldn't make a video until 2021. Alright, let's just go for it. Okay, so Rin is young. She's an orphan. She lives in this abusive foster household. And there's this opportunity. All the kids are allowed to take this exam. And if you perform really well in this exam, you can go to these really prestigious academies. And the most prestigious academy is the only one that's tuition free. Your education and your time there is paid for because you are the cream of the crop. The cream of the crop, really. Rin is this young orphan with no resources, no connections, nothing going for her, but she's very determined and she's very ambitious. She studies so hard for the exams. Her goal is to get to Singard, which is that top institution, because she knows she can't afford anything else. And she doesn't want to be married off, which is her only other option. So she's it's this or death, essentially. So it starts off feeling kind of like a training story. It's yeah, you're grinding, you're studying, you're putting in the effort in to be a soldier. And then it really turns into a war novel where political chaos just explodes and suddenly these kids who are trained to be soldiers end up having to step up and basically fight for their country until they die. It's a really political novel. It's so intelligently thought out. It's also really well written. The characters just feel so fleshed out. The dialogue is really good. The world building is so lovely. What I really love about it is that it also has a lot of mythology ingrained in it. We have so many different gods in their pantheon. We don't really get to know a lot of them in this first book, but it's nice to know that there is so much world out there left to explore in the next novels. There are different regions in this one nation, and these regions are based off of the Chinese zodiac. Everything in this book feels so intentional, feels so crafted, it feels so layered in a way that makes it not only entertaining to read, but like stimulating to read, which is like my favorite type of book, where not only is it such a fun ride to be on. I feel bad calling this book like a fun ride because it's gruesome. It is like probably one of the most, if not the most, just gritty, gruesome books I've ever read. The amount of gore that you have to imagine in your head when you read these really candid passages about war crimes, that is a lot. It's a lot to handle. There are just so many atrocities committed on page, or it's like you're discovering the results of these atrocities and no detail is spared. So you really get the full spectrum of everything that these soldiers have done to these civilians. It's just genuinely horrifying. But yeah, as I was saying, this book is not only like an adventurous book in terms of there are a lot of like thrilling events that happen. It's very thought out. Everything feels purposeful. I just admire that in writing so much because I think that's very hard to do. I love that our main character is so morally ambiguous, where it's like you do want to root for her because she's kind of been through a lot, but she also makes these really harmful decisions and she's very power hungry, and she's definitely a perfect example of an anti-hero where half of the time you want someone to destroy her before she destroys everything else. And the other times you're like, I kind of relate. And you're like questioning your own morals and wondering if you're a villain. I think maybe the one critique that I have for this book is that the pacing is very uneven. Like we spend a lot of time with Rin as she's like preparing for these exams, and then the timeline really shifts so rapidly. Like she finishes her academic career so quickly, and then when we get to the war period, time starts to move slowly again. There's definitely more of like an ebb and flow to the plot pacing. So that's probably my biggest grievance about this book, is that you're not going to have like an evenly paced story. But even that is just something to note and not necessarily something that detracts from the novel in any way. I can see on my camera that I've been talking for a while, but I don't think I've said anything substantial. It's weird because this is like, I feel so out of practice in talking about books because I don't do that anywhere anymore. At least in undergrad, you have like liberal arts classes that you're taking and you have readings assigned and you have discussion in class, and med school is not like that at all. So I do feel pretty out of practice, and I'm sorry if this video is so wonky. Also, it's like my first time really sitting down to film something in this apartment, and I don't think that this backdrop is necessarily the best thing. I'm figuring things out. I'm sorry. Basically, I made this video to say I survived my first semester of med school. Rebecca of Kuang makes me feel so unqualified to just exist on the same planet as her. The Poppy War, as literally everyone else on BookTube and BookTwitter already knows, is a fantastic book. It's so impressively well crafted, and I cannot exaggerate how much I love the fact that it's like rooted in actual history and you get to see these parallels between real life and this fantasy novel. And you know, it does make you very angry at a particular East Asian country that has just spent so much of its history being imperialist garbage to other Asian countries. It does get you so angry about these war crimes because, you know, they're all rooted in truth. And I think that's like the scariest part of it, is that it's fantasy, but loosely. Let's see. Was there anything left to say? I feel like you could probably find a million other Poppy War reviews on YouTube that are about 20,000 times better than this video is going to be. Sorry. We are still in a pandemic, so if my work quality is garbage, please take that as an excuse. The TLDR of this video is I read a book and it was really good and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I wanted to share with you how much I loved it. So I love The Poppy War. Fantastic book. Check out Tiffany's post in the link below if you've made it through this chaotic, horribly disorganized video. Thank you. I think that's it. That's it for me. I gotta go. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll have a fantastic day and happy reading. Bye!